My husband was furious when I got home, saying, "We are getting a divorce. You stole the $1,600. I'm done with you. You were stealing $1,600 every month from the money I was giving you, weren't you?" Parker suddenly yelled at me when I got home from work. I was confused and didn't understand what was going on. Parker, his face turning red with anger, continued to rant. "I just got a call from Kevin. He said you didn't give them any money as a baby gift, and you didn't even send them the money you promised to support them with every month. Have you been misusing the money I gave you all this time?" Of course, I had been sending money to my son and his wife every month, and just today I gave them a sum of money as a baby gift. Why would they say they hadn't received anything? I did give it to them. "Don't lie," I exclaimed, but no matter how much I denied it, Parker wouldn't listen. "Listen, I'm not giving you any more money for living expenses, but if you bring the gift money to Kevin properly, I'll forgive you. If not, I'll divorce you." "Fine, let's divorce then," I retorted, ignoring Parker's surprise. I left the house. Up until now, I had been desperately working part-time to support my struggling family finances. Despite managing both living expenses and sending money to my son and his wife, being treated like a thief was more than I could bear. I couldn't do it anymore. With Parker, who just blamed me without listening, and Kevin and Aurora, who easily lied and made me out to be the villain, I decided to cut ties with them both. With that decision, I left our home. My name is Camilla. I'm 54 years old and work part-time at a grocery store. I got married at the age of 22 and had a child right away. Parker works in sales at a beverage company and is often home late, so all the housework and childcare were my responsibilities. While my friends around me were enjoying their free time, all I had to do was raise my child and do housework. There were days when I felt beaten down, but I desperately worked hard to do housework and raise my child because I chose this path for myself. My son, Kevin, moved out when he went to college out of state. Although he found a job in the state, he started living on his own, which allowed me some leisure time. While I was living such a life, Kevin told me he had a girlfriend he wanted to marry. He's that mature now. I was deeply emotional and arranged to meet them at our home. On the day of the meeting, the woman he brought home was named Aurora. She was very cheerful and laughed a lot. Kevin was smiling the whole time, too. I was really happy that Kevin seemed to have found a wonderful partner. Both Parker and I wholeheartedly congratulated Kevin on his getting married. Things moved quickly. They got engaged and married 6 months after their marriage. Parker and I were relaxing at home one weekend when our son and his wife came to visit. Dad, I have a favor to ask you. Could I ask you to send me some money every month?" Kevin asked, looking embarrassed. Both Parker and I were taken aback. "What's happening all of a sudden?" Parker asked. "The thing is, we're thinking of starting infertility treatments, but we don't have enough money," Aurora explained. "Infertility treatments? Is that necessary? A lot of couples do it these days," Parker said. "We're hoping to have kids soon," Kevin added. I could understand how they felt, but they had been married for only 6 months. It seemed a bit too soon. People have children in their mid-30s nowadays, and Aurora is only 30, so I don't think there's any need to worry so much. "What if we can't have kids later?" Aurora suddenly raised her voice loudly, surprised because we didn't expect to be yelled at. "You had a kid early, so you can't understand how I feel to be 30 years old with no kids yet," Aurora continued. Kevin also spoke up at Aurora's words. "Mom, she's right. You don't understand Aurora's feelings at all. We're anxious. That's why we want to start fertility treatments as soon as possible. Dad, you understand, right? You want to see your grandchildren soon, don't you?" "I suppose so," Parker replied. "All right, we'll support you as much as we can. Thank you." Parker agreed with Kevin's words. If Parker was fine with it, it wasn't a matter of me. Just as I was thinking this, Parker said something shocking. "Then give Kevin $1,600 from our living expenses every month." "What? From the living expenses? That's impossible," I exclaimed. Parker gave me $1,200 a month from which I had to pay the mortgage, Parker's car loan, and our living expenses. There's no way we could afford an additional $1,600 for their support. However, Parker glared at me sharply. "What? Haven't you been saving any surplus from the living expenses? Don't tell me you've used it all up." "That's not it, but there's no way we can afford it with the loan repayments. No surplus. Managing our finances is your job. You're useless. It's all your wasteful spending that's making us short on money. I won't pay any more than this." Parker wouldn't listen at all and went back to his room. I couldn't believe it. It was hard to save even $1,200 a month, and then we had to send money from our savings. But once Parker started talking, he didn't listen to anyone at all. I was stunned, but my son and his wife glanced at me and stood up. "Mom, please take care of it," Kevin said with a smirk. The two of them left the house. Even if they asked me to take care of it, there was nothing I could do. I started working part-time at the local grocery store. Every day was a struggle with the new job, but I was desperate to manage both living expenses and the support for my son and his wife. Finally, by adding my earnings, I managed to cover both living and support costs. Yet as Parker regularly went out for drinks, claiming it was for networking, and returned home late, my stress built up. Life would be so much easier with that money, I said, but it only led to a fight. I had no choice but to persevere without relying on Parker. 6 months later, I unexpectedly ran into Kevin's childhood friend Maria at work. "Camila, long time no see. Oh, Maria, how have you been?" As we exchanged greetings, Maria smiled kindly. "By the way, Kevin's doing well, huh? Did he get a job at a great company?" "Kevin? He's working for a local company, just a regular guy." I thought he was making good money since he's been on a lot of vacations abroad lately. Vacations abroad? I looked puzzled, and Maria pulled out her phone. "Yeah, you can see here. I was so jealous of all the pictures he had been posting on social media." Maria showed me many photos that looked like they were taken at a luxury resort hotel abroad. The buildings and scenery around them in the photo were not those of the States. There were many more photos on the site, and it looked like they had been to several countries in the past few months. There was no way they had the money to travel abroad, since they were saying they were short of money because of fertility treatments. Determined to find out the truth, I headed to my son and his wife's home. "This social media account is yours, right? Why have you been traveling abroad? Where did the money come from?" My son and his wife looked at each other uncomfortably. "We just got lucky. We entered a sweepstake, never thought we'd win." Yes. Aurora is just really lucky, isn't it?" I asked. "Strange to win so often, not at all. It's just luck," Aurora replied. My son and his wife were flustered. I couldn't help but think, are they just fooling around with the monthly support money? "I see. How's the fertility treatment going?" I asked. "Oh, it's going well, of course. We appreciate the help," Aurora replied. "Which clinic are you going to?" It's the fertility clinic a little farther away, right?" When I asked about the treatment, they fumbled and didn't provide any details. Normally, insurance would have covered some level of infertility treatment. Yet, do they need $1,600 every month for that? I can't imagine what kind of treatment would cost that much. My doubts about my son and his wife only deepened. "Hey, pause for a moment. Would you care to support us? Like this video and subscribe for more." Now let's dive back into the story. About a year later, my son and his wife finally had their first child. It was a beautiful baby girl, and both Parker and I were thrilled. However, Parker was too busy with work to visit the hospital, so I went to visit them alone and gave them a gift for the birth of their baby girl. I had to think about what we were giving them all by myself, and after much thought, I decided to give them a gift card. Considering the expenses they would face, a gift card would be practical. At the hospital, my son happily held the baby. "Kevin, Aurora, congratulations. Here's a baby gift for all of you." "Thank you. Is this a gift card? That helps." "How much is it for?" Kevin asked. "It's $3,000. You can use some of it for your baby." $3,000? When I mentioned the amount, their faces fell. "Is something wrong?" "No, it's nothing." The sudden coldness in my son and his wife's attitude was puzzling, but I had to head to my part-time job now. I wondered if I had somehow offended them as I left, feeling uneasy. When I got home, surprisingly, Parker was already there, and he started yelling right away. "Hey, I thought you went to see the baby today and gave them a baby gift." "Yes, I did. Don't lie." I couldn't understand why Parker was so furious, and as he continued, his face turned red with anger. "I just got a call from Kevin. I heard that you didn't give him a baby gift and you didn't send him money every month as well. You've been doing whatever you wanted with the money I've been giving you. What are you talking about? I gave the gift and sent money to them." I'm disappointed in you for stealing our son's money. He was crying that they felt uncertain because they couldn't get the fertility treatments. Aren't you ashamed as a parent? You know what I did? I sent the money. No matter what I said, Parker wouldn't believe me and just sighed. Listen, I'm not giving you any more money for living expenses, but if you bring the gift money to Kevin properly, I'll forgive you. From your own hard-earned money, you understand? Parker's words cooled my head instantly. Why does he only believe Kevin's side of the story? He was convinced that he was right, talking down to me. I was fed up with Parker's arrogance, and I wanted nothing to do with my son and his wife, who so easily lied and tried to belittle me. I stood up resolutely. Understood, I'll leave. What? You're leaving? Parker asked, trembling. Do you even know what you're saying? I might as well divorce you. Okay, let's divorce then. Grateful that Parker was willing to grant a divorce, I left the house. 2 weeks after moving out, Parker was calling me every few minutes after work. I was about to block his number when he called again, and I accidentally pressed the answer button. Hello, do you need something? Please communicate through a lawyer about the divorce. Wait, it's not about that, Camilla. Please, let's talk. What are we talking about? I don't want to. As I was about to hang up, fearing that things would get complicated, Parker, sounding frantic, spoke from the other end. Listen, I just got all these bills today for gas and other things, and I can't pay them. I didn't expect them to be so high. Is that so? That's tough. Don't be so cold. You wouldn't think just gas, electricity, and water could cost over $300, would you? I was speechless, appalled. Utility bills over $300 were not very unusual. It was a good-sized house, and if he lived without thinking anything, it was only natural that it would exceed that much. Besides, he was the kind of person who would leave the water running when I told him to save it. The bills were bound to keep increasing. I didn't expect it to be this expensive. I said it was a rip-off at work and everyone laughed, saying it was normal. And I still have to make loan repayments. How have you managed all this time? That's why I was working. I was the one covering the shortfall. You were doing that for me? I had told Parker about my part-time job, but he probably thought I was just earning money for my spending. If only you had told me. I did tell you. You just wouldn't listen. I don't want anything to do with you anymore, so stop contacting me. I tried to hang up, not wanting to hear Parker's voice any longer, but he desperately tried to keep me on the line. Wait, I'll listen this time. I want to meet and talk face to face. Can we talk at home? No, thank you. Don't say that. I am sorry. I should have listened more to what you had to say about Kevin's baby gift, too. I want to talk with you and them together. No, I'm fine. I'm too tired to go all the way to your house after work, I said, relaxing my tired shoulders. I went out through the employee exit, thinking I'd had enough and wanted to go home. But to my surprise, Parker was standing there. I thought you'd say that, so I came to pick you up from work. I sighed at Parker's words. Now that he's here, I couldn't refuse to go home with him. I steeled myself and got into the car. When we arrived, my son and his wife were there, looking solemn. Hey, Mom. Long time no see. I ignored Kevin's greeting and sat down. So, what's this meeting about? I'd like to get back home soon. Don't be like that. I wanted to talk about the support money for Kevin and Aurora. Camilla, you said you sent it, right? Parker asked. Yes, I sent it. At that, my son and his wife raised their voices. No, that's a lie. We haven't received anything. Can you still say that after seeing this? I took out copies of the bank statement from my bag and showed them to them. It was firmly stated there that the money was wired to Kevin's account. Oh no, this is Kevin. What's going on? Parker exclaimed, ignoring Kevin's stammering. I took an envelope out of my bag. Inside there was a detailed record of my son and his wife's activities over the past 6 months. Kevin and Aurora, you guys have been on numerous vacations abroad, right? And you didn't get any fertility treatments at all. Didn't you just want money to have fun anyway? I asked, showing them the documents. What is this? Here's an investigative report from the detective agency. You have traveled abroad 4 times in the last 6 months. You must have a lot of money to spare. Kevin and his wife started sweating profusely across from them. Parker's face was turning red. You deceived me. Shame on you for deceiving your parents. Give us back the baby gift we gave you. We don't have that money anymore. We had no choice. We were short on cash. Kevin realized that there was no excuse for Parker's words, and began to talk back. We just overspent and were struggling with the repayments, and yet the baby gift was only $3,000. I thought I could get a little more if I pretended that Mom didn't give it to me because it wasn't enough. I can't believe you would even lie to get money from us. I will not have anything to do with you guys from now on. Don't contact me at all. It's just a little lie. It's not a big deal among family, Kevin tried to justify. I was stunned by Kevin's justification. Did they not know that if he lied and got money from us, even if we were his family, it would be an act of fraud? We're facing tough times ahead. We want to build a house. We are family, so you should forgive this much. No way. You are disowned. Wait, please, Parker pleaded. Kevin indeed did something wrong. I'll talk sternly to him. Please forgive us. Aurora then spoke up, to which Kevin turned on her. Why is it all my fault? It was your idea in the first place. What? Don't make things up. You were the one who said if we say we need money for fertility treatments, they'll give it to us. As they began to argue, Parker clenched his fists in anger. Enough. Both of you are to blame. Never come to see us. Parker was visibly furious, his legs shaking with irritation. They must have been expecting to continue receiving financial support. The son and his wife had to look down silently and disappointedly. I was wrong. I should have believed you. I apologize. Can we start over? Parker then turned to me and apologized. I had never received an apology from Parker throughout our marriage. Perhaps the old me would have forgiven him just for the apology, but now my love for Parker was gone. No amount of apologies will change my mind. I've already filed for divorce, so we're strangers now. Don't say that. It's been hard managing the household chores since you left. Look at this mess. Isn't it terrible? Indeed, the kitchen was littered with trash, and there were plastic bottles scattered on the floor. Drugstore bags were strewn everywhere, a stark contrast to how it was when I was around. And you want to drag me back to take care of the house? I'm not a maid. Of course not, but I can't manage without you, Camilla. All I could do was sigh at Parker for being so selfish. It seems I had always been just a convenient housekeeper to him. I can live without you. I can manage better on my own, I said confidently. But if you're only working part-time, the income isn't that great, right? You might struggle, Parker replied, concerned. Living alone is far easier. I don't need to pay rent since I live in my parents' home. Unfortunately, there's no benefit for me to continue living with you, so I'm leaving, I explained, making my stance clear as I stood up. Parker grabbed my arm. Wait, I'm really in a tough spot. The gas and water have been shut off. I can't make it on my own. Why are you out of money? What did you spend it on since you left? I thought $600 was enough for living expenses, so I spent the rest on horse racing. At that, Parker hung his head in shame, and I was utterly dismayed. This was the result of doing whatever he wanted because he thought he would be able to save money on food and other living expenses with me gone. I had no obligation to help him. If it's really that tough, why don't you ask your son for help? The bond between husband and wife may be severed, but the parent-child bond can't be, right? We don't have any money as well. It's impossible. It's exactly because I gave you the baby gift that I'm short on money now. Pay for these living expenses. I told you no more baby gifts. I cited the argument between Parker and Kevin, feeling that it was pointless to stay involved with these people. I left the house while they were still arguing. I blocked their calls and cut ties completely. Later, I heard that Parker, having had his utilities cut off and unable to manage on his own, moved in with Kevin's family. He must have realized that he could not live on his own after all, even though he had made so much fuss about disowning his son. Cover your expenses for food. I have been supporting you, so now is your turn to help me. They were spending their days arguing. Parker probably thought living with his son and daughter-in-law would help him save on living expenses. Even after receiving some income, he didn't move out, and eventually I heard he sold his house. He spent all of that money on horse racing too, and he was truly irredeemable. I was so glad I divorced him before his gambling addiction worsened. Aurora would have been the one most bothered by living with her father-in-law. All of a sudden, she was forced to do all the housework, and dealing with her nagging father-in-law was quite stressful. She was posting nothing but complaints on her social networking account. This is something I learned from Maria, Kevin's childhood friend. Aurora wanted to divorce, but couldn't make the move because she had a little kid and no job, leaving her unable to support herself. She just kept accumulating stress. I felt sorry for her, but she got what she deserved because it was Aurora who proposed to get money for the reason of infertility treatment. She deserved it, right? Now, I'm on vacation. Until now, all the money I earned by working hard had been used up for living expenses and sending money to Kevin. But once I became single, I was able to save that money all at once. I've lived my life prioritizing my family until now, so from now on, I intend to spend my money and time on myself. Life is still long, and I want to enjoy it to the fullest. Let's conclude the story shortly. Camilla, free from the burdens of her manipulative family, embraced her newfound independence. She savored her hard-earned freedom, enjoying a well-deserved vacation, and finally prioritizing her happiness. The experience, though painful, had taught her valuable lessons about trust, self-worth, and the importance of setting boundaries. She learned that sometimes letting go is the bravest act of self-love. While Parker continued to struggle, entangled in his own self-destructive choices, Camilla thrived, finding solace in her own company and the support of genuine friends. Her life, once consumed by the demands of others, was now a testament to her strength and resilience, a testament to the power of choosing oneself. And so, Camilla, with a newfound lightness in her heart, stepped into the future, ready to write a new chapter filled with joy, peace, and the promise of a life lived on her terms. After experiencing the full journey of our story, we'd love to hear your thoughts. How did the story resonate with you? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay blessed. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next story.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. but that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry." I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look, "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day." Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. "So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick? What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident, especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it." Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. "Do you two know each other?" "Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, 'I'm moving to the sales department soon.' If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it." On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. "It's still working hours." Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. "Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived." I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. "They look good." "What are you talking about?" "These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one?" As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. "Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay?" I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. "Yes, I'm inviting my father." "That's great. I might invite my parents too." I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.